Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping right into the opening lines of a story that spans generations, a text that kicks off not with some grand historical overview, but with the personal account of one man. And, every epic journey has to start somewhere. We're diving into the first 5 verses of the Book of Mormon. And these aren't just opening lines. They are the very spark that ignites this massive, sprawling story. So, what is it that sets a story like this in motion? Well, it all starts with a person who's telling it. So, let's meet our narrator, Nephi. Right off the bat, the very first word tells us who's in the driver's seat here. I. This isn't some distant, third-person history lesson. We are immediately face-to-face with our guide, Nephi, and he wants us to know he's not just telling a story, he is making a record of what he sees as incredible, world-changing events. Before he gets into any of the action, he establishes his credentials. He starts with his family, saying he was born of goodly parents. Now, this isn't just him saying his parents were nice people. No, this is a signal of social standing. It means his family had resources, which meant he had access to an education that most people back then could only dream of. And just look at the unique kind of literacy he had. It was this amazing blend of two different worlds. On one hand, you have the learning of the Jews, his deep cultural and religious heritage. And on the other, the language of the Egyptians, a super practical, compact script that was perfect for the huge task of engraving a record on metal plates. This made him both a scholar and a scribe, a really rare and powerful combination. But his resume doesn't stop there. He claims a third credential, and in his mind, it's the most important one of all. Knowledge of the mysteries of God. I mean, that's a bold claim. He's telling us he has direct, divine insight. He's establishing his spiritual authority right alongside his scholarly qualifications. So what does all this add up to? Well, in just a few lines, Nephi has built this solid case for his own credibility. He's educated, he's divinely inspired, and he wants you, the reader, to know he's a trustworthy eyewitness to history. The subtext is pretty clear. Pay attention. What I'm about to tell you is true. But okay, Nephi's personal story doesn't just happen in a vacuum. He's writing from a very specific place and time, a city that is absolutely teetering on the edge of disaster. Nephi anchors his family's story to a very precise and very turbulent moment in history, the first year of King Zedekiah's rule. This isn't some vague once upon a time. This is a specific political crisis, a moment when prophets were flooding the streets with some really dire warnings. And to really feel the tension here, you have to know this was not a time of peace. Jerusalem had already been besieged twice by the Babylonian Empire. In fact, Zedekiah was only king because Babylon had put him on the throne as a puppet. The city was basically a vassal state, living on borrowed time. And this explains so much about why those warnings were just ignored. You'd think 2 recent sieges would make people pretty nervous, but it seems to have had the opposite effect. Many people in Jerusalem kind of developed an invincibility complex. They'd held off the powerful Assyrians before. Babylon hadn't managed to breach their walls. They felt divinely protected, and that sense of security made them dangerously deaf to these prophecies of doom. Now, Nephi's father, Lehi, was one of these voices crying out a warning. But he wasn't just being ignored, he was competing. He was up against false prophets who were way more popular because they were telling the king and the elites exactly what they wanted to hear, these reassuring messages of peace and security. So while prophets like Lehi and his contemporary Jeremiah were persecuted, these other, more convenient voices were celebrated. So, in this moment of political crisis, with war looming and this widespread spiritual denial, what is the first major action that sets this entire narrative in motion? The first move isn't a battle. It's not a political decree or some big military strategy. The entire story is set in motion by a simple, profound act of faith. Lehi, just overwhelmed by the looming crisis, prays for his people. And that single, personal act of devotion becomes the catalyst for everything that follows. Just think about what's been accomplished in only 5 verses. The entire foundation for this epic has been laid. We have our credible narrator, we have a city on a collision course with disaster, and we have the single prayer that will trigger a divine response. All the key pieces are now on the board. Nephi is the scribe. He's our eyes and ears. His father Lehi is the prophet, the one receiving the warnings. And Jerusalem is more than just a setting. It's this beloved but doomed city. This makes the stakes crystal clear from page 1. This is a story about survival. the survival of a people, and the preservation of a sacred record against all odds. Lehi's prayer is the spark. It's what triggers the divine intervention that will lead his family out of Jerusalem. And it leaves us with this powerful question that just echoes through the ages. In a time of collective denial and impending disaster, what is the power and the responsibility of a single, faithful voice?